Hello students, welcome once again. Hope all are fine. Today we will go for an understanding of reserve strength in a steel member, gain and loss in using the limit beyond the elastic limit, general concepts of residual stresses, from where it comes, how to eliminate and for what structural damages they are responsible for. We will also go for general understanding of ductility ratio and redistribution concept, various mode of structural failures and development of plastic mechanism. If you recall, we have already discussed in our lecture number 2 about the ultimate limit state or ultimate load methodology, which deals with the collapse modes which converts a given structural system into mechanism. That is, which enables excessive yielding, which leads collapse, and that process is what we call as mechanism formation. So it is very clear that ultimate load design deals with or enables excessive yielding. Now this is the catch which makes ultimate load design different from elastic design. In elastic design, it limits the stress value or the load capacity until the first yield point. It means the conventional design process does not promote the load carrying capacity of the section beyond the first yield point. Now let us see what is the difficulty or what is the main lacuna in the design mechanism, and therefore we will partially shift our design principle from this to an ultimate load design, moving on to what we call the concept of excessive yielding, or ultimately what the literature refers to as in plastic design of the section. Let us see the common construction material for steel structure in our course. We all know the steel, but steel has different grades. To be very specific, I should say we should recommend what we call it as a structural steel. The specification, the chemical composition, and the structural characteristics of this kind of steel is available in standard literature. So we are talking about a special quality or a grade of steel which we call as structural steel. We all know that the conventional, and as discussed in our lecture number 1 about the stress strain curve of the mild steel, which would look like this. It has got a very distinct yield platuna where we will call the lower yielding point and the upper yielding point, and if we say this point is the point D, I should say that beyond point D the strain hardening starts. Elastic design actually limits your stress value somewhere here, which is much below the point B. So if I call this as elastic strain and if I call this as an ultimate strain, obviously ductility ratio defines the position between the ultimate strain to the elastic strain. If we look at a typical ductility ratio of a structural steel, this value can be as high as even 20. What does it mean? Structure has got a very good capacity beyond the first yield point, which is not utilized in an elastic design mechanism. So we can simply say conventionally the elastic design principle does not utilize the material strength beyond the yield value. What is very critical about it? The material strength, this strength beyond the yield value is very high. Literature refers to it as an reserve strength. When you are planning to use this reserve strength in your structure, there is an important gain what you get and there is an important loss what you also encounter. Let us first look the positive aspect of this design concept. That is a design concept which utilizes or which proposes to utilize the reserve strength of the material which is a phenomenally high compared to this area, that is an elastic zone area. Now the gain what you get in the load carrying capacity which is simply equals to the stress by area if it is an axial load and m by z if it is in bending. Of course, this is not as simple as this equation when you go beyond the elastic range. But let us say that it is a proportion of the stress and the cross-sectional area or sectional modulus depending upon the kind of load you are looking at. So the gain that you get here in the load carrying capacity is the increase from level B to the level E. That is the gain what you get. So load carrying capacity is, I should say, enhanced. What is the loss you get? The most important loss what you will encounter in utilizing the reserve strength of the material beyond the first yield point is that you are promoting for a large permanent plastic deformation. Beyond this point, the deformation set in the material will become permanent. It cannot be regained. It means you are initiating a permanent deformation in the system. It means a system design should not only cater for a load carrying capacity but also should check for the ductility. Let us say, for example, any brittle material which does not have a very good ratio of ductility, then obviously this concept of design which you are proposing now to extend beyond an elastic limit or to an extend beyond the first yield point value cannot be used because it implicitly demands a ductility capacity in the material which is utilized, and I will call as that as a loss because no structure would like to have a permanent deformation on increment of any load capacity. The most important loss as a structural engineer point of view is that when the load reaches ultimate, the strain reaches maximum. So the failure will be by both the modes. One, load is extended, material cannot take any more load because it is an ultimate load beyond which cracking starts and failure will start accelerating. And the permanent deformation is maximum. It is maximum beyond which it is more or less have a cracking mode, not a failure mode. Remember, up to this point E of strain, the material does not fail. Beyond point E, the strained material is on the failure mode. We do not want any failure anyway, but ultimately when these two values are reached, they will reach hypothetically simultaneously. So the failure, if at all, will be initiated. It gives a feeling to a designer that the failure will be catastrophic and instantaneous. Now, let us look at the justification why I must not consider the first yield point as my terminal value of load capacity. Let me first argue this. We all convinced that the load carrying capacity should not terminate at the first yield point because beyond this point a typical classical structural steel has got a very enormous reserve strength. Generally, in structural steel, the first yield value occurs not because of the stresses has reached the Fy. The first yield generally occurs, I make my statement, generally occurs due to the presence of what we call a residual stress. The presence of residual stress in a structural steel construction triggers off the formation of first yield point. Now, let us quickly throw a light on what is the residual stress. How do they come from? Residual stress essentially comes from the following. First is because of the welding process, which is a very most common process in steel structure. I mean, you cannot construct a steel structure without welding. The moment you do welding, it will initiate or it will start accelerating formation of residual stresses. The second process, which is very common in steel structure, is flame cutting, which is also responsible for the formation of residual stresses. Flame cutting is generally done to create an opening which you requires for provision of pipings, etc. So cutting cannot be avoided. The moment this process is done, it will initiate a residual stress in the system. The third could be a hot rolling, generally done for plates and the formation of standard steel sections. This is a manufacturing methodology. This manufacturing methodology will set a residual stress in the material. Once residual stresses are present in the material, it will always initiate the first yield point, which is not actually because of the loading. Now, interestingly, can we eliminate this? I do not want a residual stresses at all because they are giving me a proxy value of yield which I do not want to have in my material. I am talking about the material, not the structure. Residual stresses can be eliminated, not completely, but I should say mostly can be eliminated by first is preheating before welding. If you preheat the members before welding, you can reduce the residual stresses. Other is post heating after welding. And third is the pinning and hammering of the weld to elongate. You must have seen in the construction sites after the welding is done, people hit the weld surface to elongate it. This will reduce the tensile stresses. Residual stresses results into many unwanted behavior in the structure. Residual stresses are responsible for brittle failure fracture, stress corrosion, buckling strength reduction, and induced inelastic behavior. The presence of residual stresses results in excessive deformation, which is a plastic or inelastic deformation. When the residual stresses cannot be avoided, can we take the advantage of that so-called inelastic behavior in the design? It is because of this reason why people have started shifting from elastic design to ultimate limit state design in steel structure for a steel structure design. Residual stresses cannot be avoided. They initiate inelastic behavior. Why cannot I use this as an advantage in making design? That is what I am looking at a justification from a plastic design because plastic design accounts for the reserve strain which is on inelastic zone. Plastic design is nothing but a design related to a permanent deformation. I call the permanent deformation in a single word as a plastic. It is nothing to do with the name of the material. Plastic is not a material, it is a phenomenon which causes excessive deformation which we call as a mechanism. Later we will introduce this terminology. So people have understood the necessity of transition from an elastic to a plastic design. When you transit from elastic to a plastic design, the great advantage what designers show is the ductility. Ductility is a great positive sign of steel which gives confidence to use the reserve strength. What does that mean? It means that if I am stretching the material, if I am loading the material beyond the first yield point, it is the guarantee that the material will not fail until it reaches a specific strain value, which is nothing but a multiplier of an elastic strain value that multiplies what we have called as a ductility ratio. The guarantee was seen in the material behavior as far as steel is concerned by the designer. That was the positive sign which designers felt, yes, I can stress the material beyond the elastic limit or beyond my first yield value. Structurally, what actually this ductility ratio does to the system? Ductility redistributes the moment. In other way, I am saying moment from highly stressed section to a next highly stressed section located adjacent. For example, let us take a simply supported beam subjected to a central concentrated load value P. The bending moment value, as we all know, is this, the elastic bending value diagram. So I should say in the beam this point C is the maximum stress section because it is at this section the bending moment is maximum, which is PL by 4. Since the point C, the bending moment is maximum in comparison to other adjacent section, this section is highly stressed. If this material in steel, which has got a very good ductility ratio, then the worst section in terms of ductility will enable a process of redistributing this moment from the highly stressed section to the next highly stressed section, which is located adjacent to it. Now, interestingly, you will be trying to find out that what should be the next highly stressed section as far as the beam is concerned. There is a very important precondition that this design process should be applied and can be applied only to the structures which are statically indeterminate. Here, our simply supported beam is an determinate structure. The degree of indeterminacy for a simply supported beam is nil, that is 0. So I can look for an statically indeterminate structures which can be a fixed beam subjected to a same concentrated central load. Now the elastic bending moment, free bending moment diagram of this could be PL upon 4. On the other hand, even the support will also have the moment which will have the same value, which is in negative. Now I have got a section which are highly stressed, which are lower stressed, etc. So when the member of a structure is statically indeterminate, then you get a successive section which are on the sequence of getting highly stressed. So the moment or the bending moment will get redistributed from highly stressed section to a next successive highly stressed section in the member. But the structure should remain statically indeterminate to use this facility. We will talk about this slightly later in a plastic design in detail. So here is only a hint. So it is the capacity of redistribution of the moments which enables the designer to think of using the plastic design principle for a structural system, which have a material with a large reserve strength, and for sure the material will not fail until the strain reaches the ultimate value. This has been seen from the material property. You stretch the material, keep on loading the material does not seem to fail until P reaches P ultimate or the corresponding value of epsilon ultimate, beyond which of course the material will fail. Having said this, we can take a very important comment saying that ultimate load design uses the material capacity to its maximum, whereas the elastic design does not. So that is seen on one of the positive point in the design perspective. Now the structure can fail in many ways. Let us see what is that failure we can address in ULD. We must be very clear in this. The structure can fail in many ways. It can fail due to instability, It can fail due to fatigue. It can fail due to an excessive deformation. Dear students, these modes of failures are not addressed in ULD. It means ultimate load design will be employed to only that structure which does not fail by any of these. The material or the cross section or the structure as a whole will continue to carry a load beyond the yield point. Then the question comes, how do you define the failure? Because the failure is not being initiated by any one of the above said condition. The material will keep on carrying load beyond yield value. We have got to stop somewhere and say that the material is failed or the structure is failed. The structure is said to be failed due to excessive plastic deformation. So there is a cutoff which we called as an excessive plastic deformation. There is a special name given to the structure. Once this deformation level is reached, the structure becomes mechanism. It is no more a structure, it becomes a mechanism. It is because of this adjective the design method is also called a plastic design. Why we call this a plastic design is because we are enabling the plastic deformation in the system. There are two reasons why the designer wants to shift from elastic design to an ultimate load design. They are: number one, the load carrying capacity can here be enhanced from yield value to an ultimate value. Secondly, it is also at the same time the ductility features of the material can be used fully, so that it is guaranteed that the material will not fail until the strain reaches the ultimate value or until the ratio is expected to fulfill the reserve strength of the material. So these two were inherently prompted the designers to shift the design principle from elastic design mechanism to that of plastic design principle. We will consider a beam subjected to a pure bending. The beam should have at least one axis of symmetry. It can be of any cross section. So let us say I have a beam and is subjected to a pure bending moment. So the beam will start bending, and of course there will be an axis, which is also a very important discussion point. We'll talk about this axis later. I am applying a pure bending at the ends of the beam and keeps on increasing the moment. The beam will keep on bending as shown in the figure. Let us say the beam has any specific cross sections of any shape. Beam has two axes, one neutral axis where the strain remains zero and other equal area axis where axis about which the total area of cross section is divided into two equal parts. Initially, strain in the extreme fibers are lesser than the yield value as shown in the figure. The first case, as a further keeps on increasing moment at the ends, the extreme fibers will reach the yield value that may be the next stage. Now, if we further increase the moment at the ends of the beam, next successive fibers from the extreme fibers starts yielding and we will get two core. One plastic core at two ends represented by the yellow color and will have a constant stress in all fibers which have reached the yield stress, and another is the elastic core represented by the two opposite blue triangles in the figures where all fibers are having stress lower than the yield stress. As both cores are present, Such stage is identified as elastoplastic stage and will remain in the stage till the presence of elastic core in the section. On further increase in moment, the stage will come ultimately where the entire section will get plasticized. Here, very interesting things happens. When the entire sections get plasticized, neutral axis starts shifting and will merge to an equal area line. It is obvious that on bending the beam, top fibers will be in compression and bottom fibers will be in tension. So, when the section is fully plasticized, in order to make equal magnitude of compression and tension, and since the material is isotropic, neutral axis shifts to merge to equal area line. So, when the section is fully plasticized, in order to make equal magnitude of compression and tension, and since the material is isotropic, neutral axis shifts to merge to an equal area axis to divide the section into two equal area about its equal area axis. Here stress diagram may not look symmetric about equal area axis as the section is not having a uniform boundary, but you may consider the area above and area below the equal area axis as equal. Let it be A1 and A2 respectively. Let G1 and G2 be the centroidal point for the area A1 and A2, and let Y1 and Y2 be the distance of the centroid from equal area axis. Here these geometrical parameters are used for calculation of plastic moment capacity and plastic sectional modulus. We will see this later in our lecture. While loading the section and reaching of extreme fibers to yield value to the entire sections gets plasticized, we make certain assumptions. Material obeys Hooke's law until the stress reaches first yield value. On further straining, stress remains constant. Upper and lower yield points in tension and compression fibers are same. Material is homogeneous and isotropic in both elastic and plastic states. Plane transverse section, a section which is perpendicular to the longitudinal axis of the member, will remain plane and normal to the longitudinal axis of the members after bending. There is no resultant force acting on the member. The cross section is symmetric about any axis through which its centroidal axis passes and is parallel to the plane of bending. No longitudinal shear force acts on the section and only bending moment is considered. Every layer is free to expand and contract and remain independent with respect to adjacent layers. What does it mean? If we take any fibers, in each fiber along the cross sections are having a freedom to independently expand and contract. There is no friction between the layers. Now we will go again to our previous slide. We will try to determine the plastic moment capacity of the said beam. We already said total compression is equals to total tension. We also know that sigma y into A1 is equals to sigma y into A2, where A1 is the area of compression zone and A2 is the area of tension zone as discussed earlier. Also, we can say that A1 is equals to A2 is equals to A by 2. Taking the moment about equal area axis, it will give M is equals to C into Y1 plus T into Y2. That is equals to sigma y into A1 into Y1 plus sigma Y into A2 into Y2, which is equals to sigma Y into ZP, where ZP is known as plastic sectional modulus, which is equals to A by 2 into Y1 plus Y2. How will you define plastic sectional modulus? It has two parameters, one is area and another is Y. Plastic sectional modulus can be defined as static moment of cross section above and below the equal area line. It is also known as resisting modulus of fully plasticized section. Therefore, plastic moment of resistance, which is also equals to the ultimate moment carrying capacity of beam, is equals to sigma y into Zp. Compare this with an elastic moment carrying capacity, which we also know that it is equals to sigma y into Ze, where Ze is the elastic sectional modulus, which you know or which you have calculated during your MOS subject. This concludes our lecture. In next lecture, we will go for an classification of cross sections and we will go for some numericals. Thank you.